Hello, I'm Peter Leonard Morgan, and as your 2025 President, I'm pleased to bring you DAR's last video update of 2024. Each January and July, the NVAR Forms Committee introduces updates to various forms when required to meet legal or practice changes, to simply make improvements, and to streamline specific forms. In January, there will be several updates, not nearly as significant as the ones we saw during this past summer, but still well worth mentioning, so let's jump right in. The first forms with updates are the exclusive right to sell listing agreement, the exclusive agency listing agreement, and the exclusive right to sell unimproved land listing agreement. The seller and broker notice sections have had the facts sections removed, and the listing broker compensation sections have been edited to simplify and clarify options such as percentage and dollar amount. Likewise, the additional listing broker compensation for unrepresented buyer sections have been similarly simplified. The variable rate compensation section has been removed entirely for January 2025. Just a reminder, existing signed listing agreements which expire after January 2025 do not need to be updated due to these changes. Turning now to the exclusive right to represent buyer agreement forms. The option to include a fax number was already removed during an earlier update, so no change there. But the listing broker compensation section has been modified to allow for not just a percentage or dollar amount, but some other option as negotiated between the seller and the broker. The exclusive right to lease form has had a number of updates, including the broadening of broker compensation options, the removal of variable rate compensation, clarification that tenants' broker compensation, if any, is optional, the addition of an option for additional listing broker compensation in the event of an unrepresented tenant, and the authorization for the broker to collect the first month's full rent and a credit towards broker compensation and any compensation to a tenant's broker. The release of brokerage representation agreement form has had a couple of options updated, namely whether the brokerage compensation obligations are released and whether to retain or renegotiate any early termination fee. Next, the appraisal contingency form, where there is no financing contingency, has had the words "or void contract" removed in Section A because there is no automatic right to void under this contingency. The Virginia Landlord Tenant Act lease form has had several updates, which include a definition for rent and clarification as to how it will be paid, the inclusion of all potential fees, a definition for premises has been added, plus clarification that it includes grounds on the premises. There is an expansion to the way in which rent may be paid, a reduction in the number of occupants from 8 to 6, but with an additional note that the tenants do not need to be included in the occupants list. Finally, there's clarification of the utilities and services section to specify what the tenant is liable for as opposed to included in the rent. The rental application form has been updated to allow the tenant to request a contribution to the tenant's broker compensation. The buyer's acknowledgement of potential adverse consequences form now includes a buyer's waiver of rights to cancel under the new Virginia Resale Disclosure Act. The solar panel addendum to the listing agreement form incorporates a couple of minor changes, namely the change of solar panel manufacturer to solar panel installer, and further clarification that if there is more than one solar panel loan, then separate addenda for each must be executed. There's a new form, the Tenant Brokers Compensation Agreement, which has been created in order to formalise any compensation paid by a landlord or listing broker. I won't go into too much detail here other than to mention that this form is only required when the tenant has a broker who is to be compensated by the landlord or listing broker. It's a fairly flexible form in the sense that it can be presented by either side before a lease is ratified. And finally, the two sales contracts, the residential sales contract and the sales contract for unimproved land, have had a typo corrected. Again, there's no need to update any active contracts due to this correction. Hopefully this quick overview has been useful. However, we encourage you to attend a class to go through these updates in full. Check out the NVAR calendar for an opportunity to register for a forms update class on Monday, January the 13th from 10 AM to 11:30 at the NVAR office. It just remains for me to wish you all happy holidays and a successful 2025 from all of us here at the Dulles Area Association of Realtors.